Germany will follow a tougher approach towards relations with China as a new coalition government prepares to be sworn in next week here in Berlin. The government headed by Social Democrat Olaf Scholz will have the Green Party's Annalena Baerbock as foreign minister. In an interview to German newspaper Taz, she laid out her vision for Berlin's interactions with Beijing. She said, "Dialogue is the central building block of international politics, but that doesn't mean we gloss over issues or remain silent on them. Foreign policy based on values is always a combination of dialogue and toughness. Eloquent silence is not a form of diplomacy for the long term, though many have believed so in recent years." Now, those remarks are a clear shot at the foreign policy of Angela Merkel, but her approach has been an evolving one. She began her chancellorship being vocal about human rights in China and drew the ire of Beijing by holding talks with the Dalai Lama. But Merkel soon pivoted to her trademark strategic pragmatic outlook, favoring engagement over confrontation. She's been reluctant to criticize or antagonize China on the hot-button issues of Xinjiang, Hong Kong and Taiwan. And she stayed clear of Beijing's trade war with Washington. Instead, she sought to tighten economic ties, taking German corporate leaders on her trips to Beijing. But critics say she's given China too much leeway and put business interests before human rights. China clearly wants continuity with the Merkel era. After the announcement of the new German government, Beijing had this to say about its expectations for the bilateral relationship.
We hope that the new German government will continue its pragmatic policy towards China, move in the same direction as the Chinese side, and develop bilateral relations on the basis of mutual respect, equality, and mutual benefit.
And for more on the messaging from Beijing and Berlin, I'm joined now by Noah Barkin. He's managing editor at the Rhodium Group and a senior visiting fellow at the German Marshall Fund of the United States. Noah, welcome. Foreign Minister-designate Annalena Baerbock has indicated a tougher approach from Berlin towards Beijing. What are the specific areas where we can expect to see some sort of a change?
Yes, well, good to be here. I think one area is simply on human rights. I think we're going to see a more outspoken German government on issues like Xinjiang, on issues like Hong Kong. I think on Taiwan as well. We'll see a change of tone from the government. I think another area is Europe. I think Baerbock has made clear, and this is also in the coalition agreement, that she wants to push for a more unified European approach to China. This is something that Merkel, under outgoing Chancellor Angela Merkel, she paid lip service to this, but didn't really pursue it, and I think was accused by others in Europe of sort of pursuing German interests rather than a broader European approach. And I think, it's going to mean just more confidence. And Baerbock said this in an interview this week. Europe has leverage over China. China needs European markets. China needs European investment. So taking a more confident approach in dealing with China, less self-censorship. Baerbock has said she wants to end this sort of culture of silence. So I think we'll see a change of tone from day one.
I mean, the unified approach with Europe is something I do want to talk to you about, but I do want to highlight a point that the outgoing Merkel administration always made, and this was the trade relationship with China. China is Germany's biggest trade partner. We're looking at more than 200 billion euros worth of trade annually. Is this argument no longer valid? Or is Germany taking this on board but is giving more preference to values such as human rights that you mentioned?
Well, I think it's not really a one thing or the other. I think you can talk about your values, you can defend your values in public, and still maintain an economic relationship with China. I don't think anyone is talking about unwinding that economic relationship. What we're really talking about is maybe reducing dependencies, diversification to other markets, and more sort of resilience. So that is a debate that hasn't really happened in Germany, and I expect to see more of that from the new government, a debate about the economic relationship with China.
Let's talk about the debate in Europe. And as you pointed out, Annalena Baerbock has, in her interview earlier in the week, talked about the need of a, quote, common European policy on China. How close is Europe to speaking in one voice when it comes to China?
Well, it's difficult. We're talking about 27 different countries. You have, on the one extreme, a country like Lithuania, who has been very assertive in pushing back against China. They just opened a Taiwanese representative office, or allowed Taiwan to open a representative office in the country, and have been subject to Chinese retaliation and threats because of that. On the other extreme, you have a country like Hungary, which is cultivated a much closer relationship with China. So getting all these countries together is not easy. No one believes that this is going to be a walk in the park. But I think it really starts with Germany. Germany has to show that it is pursuing a European approach, that it's not only pursuing German interests. And I think if it does so, other European countries will follow. So that is the big shift that we could see under this new government. Germany willing to maybe pay a small price for a more European approach.
What does this mean for Beijing? What can we expect Beijing to do when it comes to its relations with Berlin and therefore, by extension, with Brussels?
Well, I think there is a certain amount of nervousness. You can see this in the coverage in the Chinese media about this change of government in Germany. Angela Merkel was, a very close partner for Beijing. She was obviously in office for 16 years, had built up close relationships with China's leadership. And this is a new government with parties, including the Greens, but also the Free Democrats, that have been pushing for a harder line. So I think we're going to see Beijing testing this new government in the early days to try to figure out whether how far it can go, whether this government is going to be more outspoken on human rights, and we may see some sort of carrots and sticks coming from Beijing to sort of test this new government.
Noah Barkin, we'll leave it there for the time being, but thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.